Hi, I'm Saida Garrett, co-writer of Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mr. Mark Tara.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the persons appearing on the program.
Today on Rainbow Country, TIFF and beyond. My coverage of the 48th Toronto International Film Festival comes to an end with two Canadian films, the trans doc, I Am Sirat, and the short film, Red Lights, plus the Indigenous feature documentary, Awaken. That and more in episode 379, so stay tuned for Gay Talk Radio right here on this special funding episode of Rainbow Country.
Hi, this is Carol Pope.
Hi, I'm Garrett Conley, author of Boy Erased, a memoir.
Hi, I'm Lorraine Segato.
Hi, I'm Gordep with the Spoons. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Well, hello and welcome to a brand new journey through Rainbow Country. As I like to call it, a little gay radio show working to give voice to the LGBT community and beyond. And as always, I am your tour guide through Rainbow Country. I'm producer and host, Mark Tara. By the way, Rainbow Country originates from CIUT FM in Toronto and now proudly in syndication on 12 outlets across Canada from coast to coast to coast. The Yukon, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, the east coast of Canada in Newfoundland, Ontario, even down to Buffalo, New York, and online. Well, thanks to you tuning in, streaming, downloading, but ultimately listening. Together, we continue to build Rainbow Country into a nationally syndicated gay radio show, a #1 LGBT podcast on Podomatic.com's Gay and Lesbian chart, as well as being recognized as Canada's #1 LGBT podcast on feedspot.com. So today, TIFF and beyond. My coverage of the 48th Toronto International Film Festival comes to an end with a spotlight on two Canadian films. The trans documentary I Am Sirat from Oscar-nominated filmmaker Deepa Mehta. Caught between duty and self-determination, Sirat, Taneja, a transgender woman, must act as her mother's son when at home in New Delhi, but can be the woman she really is with her friends and at work with the government of India. I chat with Sirat, Taneja, and Deepa Mehta. The other film from TIFF, the short, Red Lights. An evening out takes a dangerous turn for two Indigenous women. I chat with actor Ellen Jade. The third film on this episode is the powerful Indigenous feature, Awaken. Stories of hope and homecoming intersect as Indigenous multimedia changemakers learn and document the teachings of their elders. Joining me to talk about this documentary is the film's award-winning director, queer filmmaker, Liz Marshall. Plus in hour 2, music from LGBT artists, independent artists, voices that we've come to know and love in classic disco, classic 80s, classic house. And on this episode, I'm featuring some Canadian 80s, some queer folk, and more. All that lies ahead as we start Journey 379 through Rainbow Country, and our first stop, the Rainbow Country Bookstore. On this episode, journalist and author Brian Bradley reads from his celebrity biography, Outrageous Misfits, female impersonator Craig Russell and his wife, Lori Russell Eady. On Amazon.ca, this book has a rating of 4.6 out of 5 stars.
went on to star in a movie credited as a groundbreaking film for gay culture and a force that pushed the Canadian film scene forward. I was 13 years old, incredibly naive, and living in a small francophone community outside Sudbury, Ontario, when I first heard the name Craig Russell. I was watching something rather bland on television, and all of a sudden, this colorful, flamboyant man was mentioned in a commercial promoting a documentary. I remember it so clearly. His coiffed hair and makeup, talk of a friendship with actress Mae West, brazen footage of him singing in a wig and gown, and mention that self-confidence eluded him despite his incredible success. I had immediate questions. Who was this effeminate man in makeup? Was he a crossdresser? He lived with an old lady movie star? And he got to make a movie? Why did he get to do things like this? Craig was like no one I'd ever known. I figure he was likely gay. I didn't know any gay people, nor did I see any in the television shows or movies I watched. Was this what gay men were like? I was skeptical, wondering why there'd be a documentary about someone like that and why it was worth talking about. I had so much to learn about the world. A decade later, I was a journalism graduate with an interest in social history and biography when Craig's name crossed my path again. I was researching Margaret Gibson, a celebrated writer who suffered from schizophrenia, and an article about her mentioned Craig. They had been friends and roommates. I wondered what that could have been like. I looked up one of their shared friends in the phone book and called her up, telling her I had an interest in both Margaret, the writer who struggled with what she called madness, and Craig, the flamboyant female impressionist who seemed so unrecognized and misunderstood. I got more than I bargained for. That conversation spawned so much intrigue that I spent the next decade of my life researching and learning about Craig. Initially, it was a hobby, but by 2017, my efforts were full-time, and I knew there was a book to be written about his life. His story had talents to be celebrated, intrigues to be understood, and curious situations to be explained. In learning about Craig, I came to learn about Lori, a shy and demure, theater-loving file clerk who joined his world of make-believe and became his wife. What a turn of events that must have been for her. Who gets to marry their favorite movie star? How did that happen? What was their marriage like? I had to know. I became just as enamored with Lori as I was with Craig, and a biography about one became a biography about two. And what lives they lived. As if they weren't both outrageous and interesting enough, Craig and Lori's life and their careers coincided with gay liberation. In the years after the Stonewall riots in the United States, Toronto had its first annual Gay Pride Week, gay bars quietly opened along Yonge Street, the local drag scene began to take shape, and there was a push to include sexual orientation in the Ontario Human Rights Code. The atmosphere was as motivating as it was frightening. Police raided bathhouses, and homophobic thugs lurked around parks and protests. Numerous men turned up murdered after frequenting popular gay establishments. Craig and Lori were not necessarily politically engaged in the changing times, but they shared the notion they could do as they pleased with no apologies or regrets. They defied gender conventions and eschewed the heteronormative. Their lives and careers blossomed at the beginning of the throbbing sexual revolution and the new wave counterculture brought to the stage, radio, television, and film by icons like David Bowie, Freddie Mercury, Carol Pope, and Boy George. Craig and Lori were strange people, square pegs in a world of round holes. Unusual, misfits. That is a challenging existence, but their challenges did not stop there. Few people knew it, but Craig's life was gripped by mental illness. Mental health was not only poorly understood when he was alive, it simply was not a conversation that was had. Craig self-medicated, and his choice of cocaine led to years of drug dependency. There wasn't a conversation about addiction then either. It was a vicious cycle from which he could not recover. Lori faced her own traumas. She had a physically and emotionally abusive parent, was a survivor of rape, and suffered multiple accidents that broke her body and took from her spirit. Suffering from his own mental illness, Craig was at times abusive too. Lori never realized she was a victim of abuse, nor did she see that, in her dependency, she was an enabler, and her behavior demonstrated an unhealthy obsession with Craig. Few knew about their challenges, and in time, friends, fans, and even some family came to look at both of them with raised eyebrows. Opinions and reactions to their outlandish behavior shifted from delightful curiosity to confusion and embarrassment. That judgment compounded Craig's and Lori's challenges, putting another ceiling over them that they could not break through, even after having seemingly broken through every possible barrier.
Hi, everybody. This is Gino Vanelli. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Up next, I am Sirat. Sirat Taneja, hello, how are you?
I'm good. And what about you?
I am well. Deepa Mehta, hello, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
I have to say to the two of you, thank you both for being here, to have your voices, your stories be heard by the LGBT community and beyond. So thank you for that, especially to talk about this new documentary, a powerful documentary called I Am Sirat. But first, I just want to start on a quick little fun note. Sirat, you and I both share a love of one thing, and that is simply, in India, it's called Big Boss, and in North America, it's called Big Brother. In Canada, Big Brother Canada, we share a love for Big Brother.
It's a Big Brother.
नहीं कहते भी मैनू भी बड़ा पसंद है
Big Boss.
हाँ तू कहते हैं मैनू भी पसंद है
I love Big Boss too.
Yes, well done. So here's my first question, Sirat. This documentary is telling your story, your journey. What is the story that you're telling in this documentary, I Am Sirat?
पूछ रहे ने की स्टोरी तू दस रही है डॉक्यूमेंट्री विच
मतलब कि मैं अपनी डबल लाइफ दस रही कि मैं कितना इस टाइम स्ट्रगल कर रही अपनी लाइफ च और मैं की चाहनी हां मैं वो बनना चाहनी मतलब कि फीमेल और लोग मैंने एक्सेप्ट करा लोग तो पहला मेरी मदर
she's talking about what Sirat is saying is that what she is the story that she's telling is the story of her life, the duality of her life, where she has to still be the male son that she was born to her mother, and for the rest of the world, she is who she feels she is, which is a trans woman. And she is, through this documentary, showing that struggle, but also that she can conquer that struggle with equanimity, with optimism, and with hope.
Deepa Mehta, how did you get involved in this particular project?
I met Sirat 4 years ago while I was shooting, I think it was a Netflix dystopian drama or something in India. And Sirat was cast in it as a trans TV guard. And we got to know each other, and I really liked her. I mean, you were so positive and always willing. You know, somebody who wants to learn and performance and just into it so much. It really touched me, and we remained friends since then. On WhatsApp, Sirat would WhatsApp me when I come to Toronto, and I go to Delhi very often, once in about 2 or 3 months. So invariably we would meet. That's how we met.
So Deepa, this documentary is told through technology, smartphones. Why the use of smartphones to tell the story of Sirat?
For a couple of reasons for me. I mean, when Sirat wanted, she turned to me one day, when was it, about like 7 months ago, and she said, why don't you make a film about my life? We were talking about her life and, the challenges and her optimism and her duality and belonging. Where is home? That is what got us talking. And I thought that would be an interesting idea. And I said, let me think about it. Then I talked about it with her, and I said, I felt very strongly that the only way it would work for me is if Sirat told her own story, if she was in charge of her own narrative. And I just was the facilitator while she told her own story. And that was very important to me. And smartphones is the only way that we could be personal. So there's no crew, there's no sound person, there's no camera person, there's no lighting. Sirat could go wherever she was. The only thing was that when she shot herself, and it was her own narrative, that she did it vertically. And whenever I shot her shooting herself, I would do it horizontally. And it's intimate, it was fast, and it wasn't about cut and action and film crews landing up in private spaces. It was just us. It was Sirat.
ਤੇ ਨਾਲੇ ਆ ਵੀ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਆ ਕੋਈ ਫਿਲਮ ਉਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਐਕਟਿੰਗ ਵਗੈਰਾ ਤੇ origignal ਹੈ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹੀ ਤੇ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਫਿਰ
Exactly. What Sirat is saying is that this is not a scripted documentary dramatic film. It's about her life. And to tell her life, she had to do it in a way which was natural to her. She's been using her cell phone to do Instagrams for 3 years. And so it felt real. It didn't feel like some artificial third person telling her that now you act and now you don't. She could be herself.
So I believe it's pronounced Hijras, the Hijras.
Hijras.
They are
Hijras.
Yeah, Hijras. They are recognized as a third gender in India and have been for, I believe, a couple thousand years. And Sirat, you were part of this community, and it plays out in the documentary how they treated you. What are your thoughts on how the Hijra community treated you?
Puch rahe ne ke tu community Hijra community de naal si te tenu kis tarah lagya community which. Or then when जब उन्होंने क्या तेनू के तू मम्मी how did you feel then?
Actually क्या कि मैं
speak a little louder.
मैं ना ਜਦੋਂ जॉब मेरा चला गया सी ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ जॉब नहीं सी ਤੇ ਫਿਰ मेरी एक फ्रेंड है जो मेरी इस टाइम गुरु सी हिजरा कम्युनिटी ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਮੇਰੇ ਕੋਲ ਕੋਈ जॉब नहीं है ਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕੰਮ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਉਹਨੇ ਫਿਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਤੂੰ हिजरा कम्युनिटी ਚ ਆ ਜਾ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਮੈਂ ਮਜਬੂਰੀ ਚਲੀ ਗਈ ਫਿਰ ਮੈਂ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਦੀ ਨੱਚਣਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਾਣਾ ਵਜਾਣਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ ਥੋੜਾ ਪੈਸੇ ਕਮਾਏ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਮੇਰੀ ਮੰਮੀ ਬਿਮਾਰ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬੋਲਤਾ ਕਿ ਜਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਮਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖ ਲੈ ਜਾਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦੇਖ ਲੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਨੇਚਰ ਬਹੁਤ ਅੱਛਾ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਮਿਲੀ ਹਾਂ ਹਿਜਰਾ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਅੱਛੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਲੇਕਿਨ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਚਿਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸੁਣਦੇ ਰਹੋਗੇ ਤਦ ਤੱਕ ਅੱਛੇ ਹੋ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਖਿਲਾਫ ਬੋਲ ਦੋਗੇ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਫਿਰ ਕੱਢ ਦੇਣਗੇ
Okay. What she says, what Sirat is saying about the Hijra community is that she, one of her dear friends was at the head of a small community, Hijra community. There are many Hijra communities all over India and all over Delhi. In this particular group, one of her friends was the head of the Hijra community. So when Sirat lost her job, a friend said, "Why don't you come into the community and work with us and be a part of the sect?" And so she did, and she had a good time laughing, she said. And she had a great time teasing guys and dancing. But then once her mother was not well, and she wanted to spend some time with her mother in the hospital, and the Hijra community, the guru of the head of the Hijra community said that either you look after your mother or you do what we tell you to do. And according to, and so Sirat made up her mind that she had to take care of her responsibility was towards her mother first. And what Sirat just said was that the Hijra community is really loving and very supportive as long as you're within the community. But if you have even the slightest dissent, then they are not too good to you, right?
Here's my last question for the two of you, and Deepa, I'll start with yourself. What do you hope audiences come away with after they've seen this powerful documentary, I Am Sirat?
My father was a film distributor, and when I was doing I finished my master's in philosophy, and I was doing my PhD, and between that, there was a moment where I had an epiphany after working for some friends. I said, Dad, I want to be a film director. And he thought about it and he said, that's fine. But always remember two things in life you will never know about. One, you will never know when you're going to die. And number two is you will never know how a film will be received. And that is absolutely, I have no expectations, but what I do have is what the documentary Being Around Sirat has done for me. Nobody can take that away from me. And it has been one of the most enlightening experiences of my life to be exposed to Sirat, to learn about her world, and realize that in these days of dissent and the weather change and how we are becoming so volatile and always talking about the other. Sirat has taught me more than anybody else that we owe it to each other to humanity is the most important. That was a very long, quick answer. Sorry.
And Sirat, same question for yourself. What do you hope audiences come away with after they've gotten a glimpse into your life?
तू की समझ दिए कि audiences की लेके आएंगे तेनू देख के सब बोली हाँ
मैं बोल रहे ना कि सब दे अपने अपनी सोच होंगे कोई अच्छा समझेगा कोई बुरा समझेगा है ना लेकिन असी आई कोशिश की थी और मैं आई होप करने की सब नु अच्छा ही लगे कि सब अच्छा ही बोलना जब मैं पहले बोल रही थी कि पॉजिटिव सोचांगे तो पॉजिटिव होएगा बाकी लोकां ते सारा अब कि लोकी की कहंगे मुझे पता नहीं है लेकिन मेरी जो होप है वो आई है कि लोकां नु अच्छा लगेगा.
She says she has no clue about how people will react, but her feeling is that they will like it. Yeah.
Well said, well said. Sirat, Deepa, thank you both for your time. Well said, well done, well made.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.
I Am Sirat is currently doing the film festival circuit scene, but keep a lookout when it does come to a streaming service near you.
My name is Charles Officer, and I'm the writer and director of Invisible Essence, The Little Prince. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Coming up, my on-location interview for the short film, Red Lights. Ellen Jade, hi, how are you?
I'm so well.
I have to say thank you for being here. It's nice to meet you. I was just saying, how's this experience been for you? And you just replied?
It's been an experience.
This is your first TIFF?
Yes, this is my very first TIFF, and it's an experience.
Yeah. So we're talking about a short film called Red Lights.
Yes.
And let's just jump right in.
Okay.
Talk to me about, it's a short film.
Yes.
Talk to me about the story that you guys are telling in Red Lights. And are you okay to talk spoilers and stuff? Maybe to a certain degree?
To a certain degree.
Okay.
I think we're going to skim across the surface, and it's you dive in.
So tell me about the story that is in Red Lights.
Amazing. Okay, so Red Lights is directed by Eva Thomas. It has myself, Ellen Jade, and Ganyantio Horn as the leads. So basically, it's, the setting is we're girls meeting up at a bar, just friends, and the night takes a sinister turn. As, my character himself, I'm abducted. And then the abductors are the police. And so this is bringing to light the Starlight Tours. So this is a short film that was built around the Starlight Tours that came to public's knowledge in the early 90s and 2000s.
It started, I think, back in 76.
Oh, yeah, it started, but I think like the...
when the consciousness started happening.
Yes. When it came to light, there had actually been 3 freezing deaths in in Saskatoon, and one man actually ended up making it back, and his name was Daryl Knight. And when Daryl Knight put the complaints in, that's when, that whole door opened up into what was actually happening in these deaths, where they were finding, young Indigenous men and boys frozen to death in fields in the outskirts of city limits.
How did you come to this project? How did you hear about this? Was it just a random posting somewhere? Was it through your agents?
Well, Taneja and myself originally worked together and met on Letterkenny. So we've done that for a few seasons, and we're actually, very good friends, like on and off set. And Eva knows Tio, and she's had this manifesting, I guess, and she had us on pictures on the board, and
wow.
If these are the two I need, and it was all about manifestation and connection. And one day that was just like, Tio literally wrote me, and she's like, "Hey, do you want to be my best friend in a film?" And I was like, "Yeah." I do.
So earlier you mentioned Starlight Tours, and that's what the short revolves around.
Yes.
Had you heard of this prior to this?
Yes, I actually
I'll
have.
be honest, I hadn't heard about this, and after seeing the short, I was like, hello. Like, it's beyond stunning that people in power can do this.
Yeah.
Not that it should be necessarily surprising, but it's unfortunate.
It is.
And so I was. That's when I first heard about it.
Yeah, it truly is like, an egregious abuse of power.
Yeah.
And it's frightening because who you turn to and the people you've, been touted by the whole community and society to be protectors, to uphold civil rights and people's, safety and basic humanity. And that's not the case. And for myself, it is very real because we had an incident of a Starlight Tour actually in my community very recently. Yeah, very recently. Yeah, so This is still occurring. It is still occurring. It's just you're not hearing about it, but it is still occurring. There was a young man in my community driven to the outskirts of our community, and I'm 2.5 hours northeast of Thunder Bay. So we are in the bush, honey. We are in the bush. There are packs of wolves. Like, you got to watch. Like, you actually have to watch. There's lynx walking through town. So to be dropped off, about 40 kilometers outside of the reserve in the middle of the night, and you walk back. I'm telling you, it's pitch black out there, and it can be quite scary. So, it's still occurring. There's a lot of stuff that is still occurring. And again, it's that sort of sleepiness that's put on, the mass majority of people so that we don't have these moments where like yourself, where, you're core.
I hadn't
Yeah.
And I hadn't known about it. So what do you think it'll take for this to become more in the media, in the mainstream media, so that people know about this and it can come to an end, hopefully sooner than later? What do you think it'll take?
I think it's going to take a lot more of this, a lot more people like myself and yourself, stepping into these places that are really intimidating, and they can be quite honestly dangerous, but to still be those voices, and also for police accountability in areas, whether it's body cam, but there has to be true civilian oversight, and especially when we're talking about policing on reserves as well. That's a whole different ball game. That is a whole different ball game. And a lot of officers that, graduate from school and they're just hot and ready to get out there and start charging are often sent to reserves. And then
really,
they're sent to reserves. So it's essentially their training ground and their playground. So there are a lot of youth that end up with criminal records before they even go to high school, but they're looking. And so it's a very, some communities, and this is just, I'm just going to say it as it is, there's a very cowboys and Indians feel there sometimes, and it can be very hostile, very, very hostile, very targeted, like it's alive and well, and it's frightening, but it's these pieces, that people like myself and Eva and yourself, where we're creating these things that you see and you feel. And it's about, the artistry behind this story and putting it together that really brings it home for everyone, because, there are so many communities that are oppressed and marginalized and, have experienced brutality to the deepest extent. And I think, we're doing it, and it's tiring. It may seem like an endless task. It may seem daunting, but we have to do it, because of all the little ones that are coming behind us. And that's, we're already ancestors by being here. So when they look back on us, what did we do, in 5 or 6 generations? So me and you sitting right here right now, we're doing something. All the listeners right now, we're doing something. But it's having that recognition that you're already an ancestor by being here. And there's people coming behind you. So how are you going to set it up for them? How are you going to protect them? And for myself, I have nieces and nephews, and I carry that fear as they get older, as my nephew gets older and his skin gets darker, and, my nieces grow up and, they're women in the world, and that's scary enough as it is. It's like, do as much as you can, whatever you can.
Powerful words. Powerful words. How did you get into acting? How did this come about for you?
Actually, bringing it right back home to Ganyan again. So, a couple years ago, almost 10 years ago now, I've done Letterkenny since. We had followed each other on Instagram for a very long time. Fangirls, huge fans of each other, didn't know each other. And they were casting for a role in Letterkenny. And Ganyan brought my Instagram account and was like, hey, you should check this girl out. I don't know if she asked. And then I got the email, and I ended up doing my audition on the way to New York in the airport. And then, I booked the role. And then that's literally was my first acting job. And, broke out into the world of, this industry was Letterkenny.
How many seasons now?
Oh my gosh, there's over 10, 12. And then there's Shoresy. There's just so much. There's so much. And like I said, it's been amazing. I'm so blessed that Letterkenny was the very first
thing that
that was it. Yeah.
Brought you to the awareness, the public awareness.
Yes.
Okay. So Vikings.
Yes.
I love that show. Okay, keeping it real, I have never seen Letterkenny.
No.
Haven't seen it.
That's okay.
But hell have I seen Vikings. I love that series. And you're part of that series.
Yes.
Talk to me about that experience for you.
Amazing. I mean, without even being
Where was
said,
it shot?
Ireland. So I got to go live in Ireland.
Okay.
For about a month and a half, and we filmed there. And it was so surreal. It blew my way.
Was it season 6?
Yes, the final season. Yeah. So it blew me away because it was not only the largest production I'd ever been on internationally, as well as my first international production. But the first day we arrived there, they had said, "Okay, come meet the directors and everyone like that." And we arrived on set, and it was this huge battle scene. They had pyrotechnics. There was swords. There was war, and I was just like, "Whoa, okay, I'm in Vikings, and we're gonna do this." And we did it, and it was amazing. One of my favorite jobs, I think, experience, and just seeing the depths of just how many people it takes for that show that you love so much. And I'm like, oh my God, that was 14, 15 hour days. That was 4, 5, 3 o'clock in the morning call times. And just so that we could bring the joy that you experience when you watch it. And it's beautiful. It just keeps reaffirming my love for creating and being a storyteller.
So my understanding is Red Lights is a short, but there are plans to turn it into a feature?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. So we are manifesting this. We are manifesting this. But we are. We're looking. It will be a short to feature film. Yes.
So what can you share in regards to the feature? Will this just be an extended version of the short, or
it will? It's going to continue. The story will continue. So I guess in a kind of nutshell, keep it very surface. Think of Bonnie and Clyde, that kind of thing. We're going to live. Okay, so we're not. There's no deaths in here, but they're going to go on the run. This story in this short is going to evolve into something large. And
is it fair to say that maybe this is the first act?
I would say so. I could say, I would safely say.
So no spoilers necessarily.
No.
If anyone sees the short, that I've seen what's about to come in a year or two.
Yes.
Like the full-length movie.
Yeah, you'll have, a little snippet, and then, but it leaves you with so many questions. They're like, okay, what did they do? But what happened? Where are they going? How is this going to end? So there's enough in there to entice you to want to question and also be a part of that manifesting to what's coming next, So I think if you see the short and you have the chance to, an opportunity to see it, I highly recommend it. And, if you don't know what Starlight Tours are, just put it into Google and, you'll find out what you need to know. But I would say if you've seen this, you will be excited for the feature film, that's for sure.
Yeah. So here's my last question for you. When it comes to essentially the story that's at the heart of Red Lights and the feature that'll come, what do you hope audiences take away from these stories that you're telling, especially with this particular project, Red Lights? What do you hope audiences come away with after they've seen maybe the short, maybe the feature that's to come? What do you hope audiences get away from this project?
I think I want for people to really start taking off those rose-colored glasses, and really taking a full scale and scope of what's actually happening, in the historical context of the relationships between, marginalized Indigenous communities, LGBTQS communities, really, where police force came from, like the RCMP. The RCMP was created, for the residential school systems to round up, the kids across Canada. So knowing where these, systems have come from, and I think it's about that push in education as well, because there's so many people that I'm coming across and they're like, this is the first time I'm hearing about it, when for us, it's a very real thing every day that we live. Our hands get clammy when, we see a cop. It's like, oh God, okay, you become, that hyper awareness is there. And I think it's about, creating safer environments and communities for people, but it's about being a part of that accountability that's required, and also that knowledge and awareness so that you can protect future generations, to really have these hard conversations of, these things happen, these things have happened, these things continue to still happen, but you're a part of how that's going to start changing, and creating these places of awareness. And I think that, this is a great starting point for people if you're curious to put yourself in, and the characters are so relatable. It's two best friends meeting up. How many times have you done that? How many times have I done that? And sometimes they don't make it home, and there's unanswered things. So I think it's supporting that larger, conversation of missing, murdered Indigenous women and men, and, going into pushing yourself into spaces, that you maybe haven't been into before.
Well said. Ellen Jade, thank you so much for your time. Well said. Well done. Well filmed. A powerful short. I'm sure it'll be an even more powerful feature. But I have to say, I love me some Vikings.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
If you know what I mean.
Yes.
Thanks again.
Miigwech.
Red Lights is currently doing the film festival circuit scene.
Hi, I'm Cameron Bailey, Artistic Director and Co-Head of TIFF, the Toronto International Film Festival. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
As you may know, Rainbow Country started broadcasting on air June 7th, 2016. And as of today, this little gay radio show is now heard on 12 outlets across Canada from coast to coast to coast. Plus, on the podcast website, podomatic.com, Rainbow Country is a #1 LGBT podcast. And on the online aggregating website, feedspot.com, Rainbow Country is Canada's #1 LGBT podcast. This show airs on independent radio, campus and community radio, as well as on streaming. What do all of these outlets have in common? Well, they're all listener supported to help keep the lights on, the streams up, and the airwaves broadcasting. So if you think episodes like The State of Trans Healthcare in Canada, Operation Soap, an inside look at the February 5th, 1981 bathhouse raids in Toronto, if you think episodes like those, not to mention giving airplay to queer recording artists from around the world, if you, like me, think it's important to have a show, to have a platform like Rainbow Country, giving voice to the LGBT community, and beyond, I hope you'll consider making a donation to this very outlet you are tuned to. And if you're listening to the edited podcast version, please consider making a donation to an outlet that does carry Rainbow Country. Simply go to marktara.com and hit the syndication banner to find a list of syndicated outlets. Rainbow Country, a little gay radio show working to give voice to the LGBT community and beyond. A heartfelt thank you for having your voice and your support be heard.
Hi, my name is Joanne Vanicola, and I'm an actor and a writer, and I was first on Rainbow Country with Mark Tara on discussing the massacre at Pulse Club in Orlando. I realized how important it was for our community to have a radio station, specifically for our issues, to talk about people in the LGBTQ community and to provide an outlet for our stories, to discuss our politics, culture, and give voice to the issues that matter to us, and of course our artists and the things that we do globally, and talk about culture. And without people like Mark Tara providing a space for this with a radio show like this, then we wouldn't have that voice. So support, tune in. Thank you.
Hi, I'm writer Adam Smith, author of Deep Sniff, A History of Poppers and Queer Futures. You're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.
Next, Awaken. Liz Marshall, hi, how are you?
Hi, Mark. It's wonderful to be back. I'm good.
I have to say thank you for being here to have your voice, your story be heard by the LGBT community and beyond. So thank
Amazing.
you. So thank you for that, especially to talk about a new documentary, Awaken. Talk to me about this documentary, a powerful documentary, a moving documentary, and essentially what you're getting at, what you're saying, what you're telling in this documentary, Awaken.
Absolutely. So the last time we spoke, I was still living here in Toronto, where I am currently doing this interview with you. But I moved during COVID. I moved out west and to the Sunshine Coast, which is close to Vancouver. And in doing so, I really wanted to engage in a documentary that would root me in community in as a non-Indigenous documentary filmmaker. I found myself being invited by Indigenous collaborators and friends and filmmakers to make a film together. And that's what this is. This documentary is about intergenerational healing. It centers the stories of 4 Indigenous elders who have legacy stories, as well as the knowledge transfer that they pass down in the film to my 3 Indigenous collaborators who are co-producers, co-writers on this documentary. And it's really, for me, about being a witness and a friend and an artist in this journey.
So this documentary tells a number of stories, community stories, family stories. How did you guys all come together?
It happened Yeah, it was synchronicity. It happened very, very quickly. I find that this happens a lot with the documentary work, is that you meet someone and then that cascades. It opens a window, a door, something connects, and a light bulb goes off, and you just feel like, oh wait, what's going on here? And that's what happened. We all met within a short period of time and connected the dots. And I realized that my co-producers, Echo Alec, Alfonso Salinas, and Charlene Sanjenko, were all doing similar things. They were all documenting the stories of their elders. And so trying to piece that together within a feature-length documentary format became our shared goal and journey. And we actually very quickly got financed by TELUS Originals, Creative BC, and then we have other partners too, Hollywood Suite, Knowledge Network. And it happened very quickly, all within a year and a half. And the reason I'm here in Toronto right now is we just had our world premiere at the Planet in Focus Film Festival, which was awesome.
Did the speed that this came together, did that surprise you?
Yes. Usually with a feature documentary, you like to have, a couple of years at least. And it takes time. With this, it all happened quickly, for which we're very grateful. To have this documentary that can now move in the world and be released, and we're working together in that way as well.
The speed that this happened at, especially when it comes to financing so that you guys can tell these stories, do you think that this marks a shift in Canadian filmmaking, especially when it comes to telling Indigenous stories?
I think it's luck. I think we were lucky to get financed as quickly as we did. I also think it just resonated in terms of its themes, the people, the ideas, the team. I think that all of that was just part of, getting that big yes from TELUS Originals. I think it was a combination of many factors happening at the right time. Because there's never any guarantee that, you pitch an idea, you think it's amazing. It doesn't necessarily mean that it will get off the ground, right? So I've been doing this for a long time. This is my 5th feature-length documentary. So you always count your blessings. It doesn't matter how experienced you are, or how great you think an idea is. It either happens or it doesn't. But it takes a lot of perseverance, and it's a team effort. This is very much a collaborative effort based in communities, based in a willingness and a desire to work together as an Indigenous and non-Indigenous team.
Mm-hmm. So this documentary is telling community stories, family stories. Justin Trudeau even makes a brief appearance through archival footage in this documentary. I'm interested to know, for yourself, was there an emotional toll in the process of making this documentary for you?
I would say the emotional toll, there's always an emotional toll with every documentary, because it becomes so fully immersive. And there's always the ebb and flow of witnessing trauma or some form of human suffering, but there's always the human resilience and the inspiration. And in this film, I must say, there's also a lot of humor. So it's a real mix of emotion. I would say the challenge for me, it was a positive challenge, which was learning new ways of doing the work within a decolonized frame. So learning and unlearning certain practices.
Can you give me an example when you say, like, that's such a big word, colonization, decolonization? Can you give me a specific example when you say working in that certain framework?
Definitely. So a practical example would be that we made a decision that, and this was guided by the Indigenous folks on the team and their teachings, is that wellness comes first. I would say I've always put wellness second and kind of pushed through a lot of the time to meet deadlines and to, power through and kind of, because I'm not suggesting that relationships haven't always mattered or been centered. They are. In documentary work, it's all about relationships. It's all about trust. It's all about wellness in that regard. But I would say much more so in this film. So practicing that, learning that within a rigorous timeline was an interesting balance. And I'm very grateful for it. I think it's a great paradigm and protocol to apply to all work. In fact, I think society needs to do that. Everyone needs to do that. There's a lot of trauma. People are tired. We're all tired. We're all burnt out within this system. So, I think a lot of the teachings, and there's many more teachings, and I encourage everyone to see the film, are gifts. They're gifts for all of us.
Healing the people heals the land. Healing the land heals the people.
Yeah. That's our log line.
Mm-hmm. Terry Coyote Alec, recounting his experience of being part of Canada's residential school system. That those moments in the film were powerful moments, moving moments, made me cry. I'm curious to know, filming that particular interview with Terry, what was that like? What was the atmosphere like in the room?
Deep, caring, a very deep sort of, it was a very caring environment. Before we turned the camera on, there was always ceremony. There was always a sacred quality and tone and intention, which is also new, even though I've just never practiced my work like that before. And I think those teachings are very, very beautiful, and it sets a beautiful energy. And Echo, his daughter, who is a co-producer on this film, as well as a featured participant in the film, as well as the film's composer, she took the lead in leading that conversation between her and her father. And it was just so profound. I think we all had tears. We all had laughter. We all had so much respect. And also making sure there's enough time, not rushing, so it was relaxed. I remember that too. It wasn't that sense of hurry up, it was settling in and doing it properly and providing that sacred space.
The title, Awaken. Talk to me about choosing this particular title and word for this documentary.
Yes, and the Indigenous word is si yu yao, from the Shisha Nations dictionary. And it was a team decision to arrive at that title. Sometimes in documentary, during development, the title just comes to you. With this project, we decided, sort of halfway through production, what our title would be. And it was really a collaborative choosing. And we arrived at that because we felt that that was what the journey is. And that's what we are inviting the audience to engage in, is a form of awakening. And it's an active word. It's a verb. And that's the invitation that the film is offering.
And it's so well suited.
Oh, thank you. I'll let everyone know.
Liz Marshall, you are a multi-award-winning filmmaker. You're part of the LGBT community. Here's my last question for you. What do you hope audiences take away from this documentary after seeing Awaken?
I hope that audiences really immerse themselves and allow their hearts and minds to open to these stories and to self-reflection and to even inspiring every individual who sees this, whether they are Indigenous or non-Indigenous, about ways that we can heal and come together. And we need, obviously, healing is a big word as well, and so is peace. These are big, huge words. Obviously, truth, justice, those things need to come first. I feel that the film is speaking a lot of truth. There's a lot of justice that is still needed in society. But, the awareness comes first. And so hopefully audiences become more deeply aware of these issues, and these relationships and stories and these people.
Well said. Well said. Liz Marshall, well said, well done, well filmed, well made, powerful and moving documentary. Thanks for your time. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much for a great interview.
Awaken has a limited run in Vancouver at TIFF, starting November 25th.
Bill 7. To ban discrimination in employment, government services, and housing, based on a person's sexual orientation, was up for a vote at Queen's Park. Most NDP and Liberal MPPs supported the bill, but without some progressive Conservative legislators backing, a divisive split could rack the province. 4 PCs decided to break party ranks to vote with their conscience and support Bill 7. Cabinet Minister and MPP Dennis Timbrell did it to show solidarity for his beloved brother, the well-known drag queen Rusty Ryan. And for me, a gay politician who was not yet out, I had to take a stand. We were known as the Gang of Four. I'm former Cabinet Minister and MPP Phil Gillies. The date, December 2nd, 1986, when LGBT rights came to Ontario.
Phone rings. I got a message from the mayor. He's going to call me back the next day. I get the call, and he said, if you'd accept, we'd like to honor you with the key to the city. There was an event later that year in May. Just a key, right? Like, key to what? A decent job, a good singing career. It's really a metaphor, but it's history. So a reporter wants to talk to me and says, so it's a key, right? Like, what's the big deal? I said, well, not everybody gets the key. So I looked it up, and I guess it is kind of a big deal.
The date, May 17th, 2018, when trans activist Susan Gapka made history by becoming the first trans woman to be presented with the key to the city of Toronto. By the way, past recipients include Rush and the Raptors. And just like that, this little gay journey through Rainbow Country has come to an end. For the full 2-hour episode, simply head over to marktara.com where everything is connected and hit the archives banner. To keep up to date with the show, check out my socials at Mark Tara. The podcast is available on all major platforms. And finally, I want to take this time to thank you for taking your time to be with me. Remember, we are living in days of making dreams come true, so believe in yourself, and the world will believe in you.
Hi, this is Police Constable Danielle Botno, also known as LGBT Cop, and you're listening to Rainbow Country with Mark Tara.